Hi, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Bill.
We are the Brent's Bling team, selling beaded and stainless steel chain jewelry, highlighting and fitness and women's competition pieces. I can even custom just for you. Check us out
at brentsbling.com.
Welcome back to RXMuscle Spotlight. I am Dave Palumbo, and today is going to be a great interview. It's a goodie and an oldie, but a great story nonetheless. The man I'm talking about is an IFBB Pro. He's a pro musician also now, who just cut an album. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. It's called The Shadowlands. The man, in case you haven't figured it out, is Peter Putnam. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. It's an honor. I appreciate you having me on.
Peter, you've been off the grid for quite a while now, and I've been following you on Facebook, and I kind of follow your journey, and I think it's very inspirational. But you were a big deal back in the I guess mid 2000s. You won your pro card at the Nationals. Before that you were second a bunch of times. You were very well known. You were probably one of the premier light heavyweight bodybuilders on the amateur scene, and you got the pro card. And then did a few shows and kind of disappeared. Talk to me, number one, about where you've been, and then let's go back and talk about your bodybuilding.
Well, as you mentioned, I currently released an album. It's my debut album. It released this past Friday on the 6th. I began recording that in Memphis, June of 2022. The music has always been a part of my life. We can talk about that, but where I've been is really just in the studio since about March of last year. I kind of began a journey when I first recorded a single to show support for all the innocent lives and people being affected in Ukraine. So that was an introduction into the studio, and from there, it was a catalyst to just go ahead and record an album, because I've been working on material for the past couple of years. So this album is really a snapshot of the past couple of years. And it's really exciting to see it out now. It's very satisfying. It's just an amazing thing, because, I compare a lot of it. The whole process is very similar to competing. A lot of people don't know, we all have stories, and there's a background or a backstory rather. And so I've seen so many parallels in this process of recording, and finally having this album out. It's almost like getting ready for a show and competing. There's the backstory. You're putting in the time, you're preparing. I mean, when I first got into bodybuilding, I had to spend, there was years of training and working to develop, you're building your physique, and there's all the time spent in the gym. Nobody sees that. It's it's just grinding. It's just doing the work and spending the time to build the physique. No spotlight or attention on you. It's just, you're doing your job, you're doing the work. And so, even comparing that to the music, no one sees all the hours spent, practicing, playing the guitar, just to develop or get better actually at your craft of even playing the instrument. And then there's the writing of the songs, and that's a process. And then you get into the studio, and there's so much that's going on just to get the final product. And it's no different than getting on stage.
Did you were you doing music prior to when you were bodybuilding? Were you always a musician?
So if someone knows my backstory, then they would know that music's always been a part of my life. I mean, when I won the Collegiate Nationals in 2004, the following day I go to Pittsburgh Guitars and I buy a guitar. So
is that true?
I just win the Collegiate Nationals. That's a big deal. I'm celebrating that. But one of the ways I celebrated was actually going to a vintage guitar store in Pittsburgh. I've always loved music. It's always been a part of my life. And what's interesting is, prior to doing the Collegiate Nationals in 2004, I actually studied at a music school in Memphis in 2002. So, I mean, that's that it's always been a part of me. I guess when people are when they only know one side of you and they've only seen or known the bodybuilder, they don't know, and especially before social media became such a, part of our lives, where now you can always put up content and you can allow people to see more of the interpersonal part of your life. We didn't have that, right? So, I mean, this was just something you were doing that wasn't highlighted, it wasn't featured. Everyone knew me for bodybuilding, but they didn't know that, oftentimes throughout the week, if I wasn't sleeping, or training, I would go by Guitar Center, I'd go to local music store. And that's always been a part of my life. I mean, I went to a music school before the Collegiate Nationals and studied there. And so I always kind of in these, in these two worlds.
Right. Did you, what made you pick up a guitar? Was that your first instrument, or did you play any other instruments prior to that?
Well, in my liner notes, which would be in the CD and the vinyl, the liner notes, you're given the credits and the song lyrics and all that stuff, where it was recorded. Special thanks. One of my friends, one evening on Friday night in high school, this was right before I turned 16. He would always bring his guitar over when he spent the night. And for whatever reason, one evening, he just literally put a guitar in my lap. And I didn't know what to do with it at the time. It was one of those moments where when you look back on it, you realize I had no idea when he showed me 3 notes, what that was igniting and how that would forever change my life. He put a guitar in my lap and said, "Let me show you something." And he just showed me 3 bass notes for all along the watchtower. And when I heard, I was like, "Am I really doing that?" And he's like, "That's you." And I was like, and I could hear myself. I'm like, it changed everything. I thought, this is so cool. And I asked my mom for a guitar for Christmas, and she got me one, and we've never looked back.
Were you formally trained in reading music, or did you just kind of fiddle around with it and figure it out?
Well, so I go to music school, and as I've told my friend who's the founder and president of the school, I said, you realize, I said, when most of the students were taken, because this was in Memphis, I confessed to him recently while I was recording the album, because he's still in Memphis, he's the president of the school. I said, a lot of the classes, sometimes I would skip out and I would go downtown and get eat some barbecue and get a beer. I mean, it's Memphis. Come on, you got to enjoy it. So I probably did not. I mean, I had classes and I don't remember a lot of the stuff. I mean, I've always been about the song. I've always been, my heart is always, or my passion is to find the song. And what I mean by that is you think of an epic band like U2 and the song One. I remember hearing a story about Axl Rose. Axl Rose, Guns N' Roses, heavy metal, welcome to hard rock, welcome to the jungle. He's on the 405 back in the day, just like anyone else driving through the radio, which is shocking because most people aren't listening to the radio anymore. He hears One by U2 come across the radio. And he had just gone through a divorce with what was the Victoria's Secret model? Was it Stephanie Seymour, maybe?
Yes.
Anyway, a beautiful girl. He's going through the divorce. He hears this song like anyone else for the first time. And in his own right, I mean, he's one of the biggest stars in the rock scene. He hears that song. He's so wrecked by it. And so he doesn't wreck his car. He pulls over off on the side of the freeway on the 405 and just bawls. And I think to myself, that's the power of a song. That's what I'm searching for, something that can connect with people and it becomes theirs. And it's a powerful thing to think that what I was dealing with or something that I was just communicating through song is able to touch other people. It's profound.
Do you have in order to be a good songwriter? Because my father was a writer. My father always says,
really?
My father's always told me that to be a great writer, you have to be able to, first of all, you have to experience pain. And secondly, you have to be able to express it on paper because that's what people want. They want to feel, something real. Is that the same with songwriting? Do you have to really be honest emotionally and open to be able to write a song that would touch people?
I've heard this before, that the best songwriters always write with what's called the aching. Does that make sense? To ache, the aching, to have felt pain, to have experienced it, to know loss, heartbreak.
Right.
And then you're able to, if you're vulnerable and if you're truly transparent, and you know, you have to just eliminate your pride. You just have to just crush it, and you put it out there. And it can be challenging. I mean, it's one thing to do it behind closed doors when no one's around, and that's very therapeutic. But once you put it out and it goes public, but now there's something a little bit more like, for me, this is the real new part. Friday, I actually performed some of the songs live at an album release event. And my joke was then, because I honestly haven't had much time to practice performing my songs. I mean, you spend the time in the studio, you've written the songs, you're recording them, but now you actually got to go back and practice performing them. So my joke was like, the album plays better than I perform at this point. But like,
well, it's like posing.
Talk about feeling naked.
You can be a bodybuilder and train and have a great physique, but if you don't know how to present it on stage, then it's not as good.
I mean, the parallels are just because it is a form of entertainment too, but like you have to spend the time in preparation in order to perform, or you'll miss the audience. They won't connect. You can have this great song, but if you can't present it, it just will fall flat.
Do you write the lyrics first or do you write the music first? That's what I always wondered.
Well, generally speaking, it's kind of like, my process is I'm driven by sounds and audio. So initially, if I'm the weather's bad here and it could be affecting.
Okay. Yeah. So you were saying that it's about a sound that you hear with the guitar. Yeah. Let me remove you and then put you back. How about now? How's that sound? You want to log back in? Log back in. Let me kick you from the studio. We'll kick him out and we'll get him back in here because this is good stuff. It's the creative process, and I always tell people that you have to be passionate and you have to really feel what you're doing, whether it be bodybuilding, playing music, art, doing art, painting, sewing, whatever your hobby happens to be. You know, drinking beers. You know what I'm saying. Designing anything. You know, woodworking, metalworking, building cars. If you're passionate and you feel an energy for it, it comes out. I think we got you back, Pete.
It's a journey of sounds. I'm listening, and I'm on a guitar. That's my medium in which I begin to write, whether it's acoustic or electric, and I'm listening. So very audio driven. And if I find something that I feels like it begins to, maybe something melodic, and that's the birthing process, or the conception of it. And so from there, usually, like, it's amazing for me, typically the mood that's being created, maybe I have a thought in mind. I also keep a journal of song lyrics or title ideas. Like if I hear something, if I'm reading something, I think it's, it could be a great idea for a title, I'll write it down in a journal. I mean, I have a list of them. And so, like, one I'm looking at right now is like not Cold by Love. I was reading a book called Peace Like a River, and in that book, the author talks about, so-and-so was not cold by love. And I'm like, that's a great title right there. So, but it's not always that way. Sometimes I'll actually just get a line in my head. I think Robert Frost, the 20th century American poet, said that the first line is a gift, and after that it's work. So oftentimes it may begin with a line or a lyric that just almost seems like it's almost supernatural. It seems like it's like out of nowhere. It's a mystery sometimes how, like, the line will just drop, and then from that point I have to begin doing the work of, like, then continuing the process.
I'm going to play a little clip from one of his songs, a little 30-second clip when he comes back, and he can tell us about what he did. I actually want to talk about his bodybuilding first, but I guess, you got to go where the interview goes, and the music was just is so important to him. But he was a really good bodybuilder. He was on the cover of Muscle and Fitness, Flex magazine. He was very well known back in the mid 90s, or excuse me, mid 2000s into the later 2000s. And we're going to find out why he left bodybuilding also in a minute. Let's just get him back. And I'm always amazed that when I talk to bodybuilders who are able to transition from, one career into another at a very high level. Because a lot of bodybuilders are very, very talented. I mean, you have to be talented to be able to be as disciplined as you are, to eat the food, do the training, do the posing, competing, dieting. So if you can apply that level of discipline to anything else that you do in your life, and I tell this to people all the time, you always have to rediscover yourself and find something else that is a passion of yours. You're going to be successful in it. And what Pete did was the right thing. He was doing the music while he was doing the bodybuilding as a secondary. So if the bodybuilding didn't work out, he had something else, that gave him pleasure and gave him purpose in life. And I think that's a great message to everyone out there, that if you have another passion, if you have something that interests you, whether it be fiddling around with cars or building things or going fishing, whatever the case. I know people that went on to be professional fishermen after bodybuilding, but if that's something that you enjoy, then you should do it. Never just put all your eggs in one basket. You have to have something if something goes wrong in bodybuilding, that you can kind of like go into temporarily. If you tear a muscle and you're laid up, at least you have another interest. A lot of times people don't have that. And then what happens is something happens in bodybuilding, you can't train, you get sick or something. And then, people become very depressed, and that's not the way you should live. You always have to have something to live for. And if one thing drops out, it's like having multiple streams of income. I always tell people that it's very important to have multiple streams of income. If you do, then you're never going to be poor. All right, here he comes. We got him back here. All right, Pete, we got you back here. Let's hope this is better. All right. I want to play a clip that you sent me. And I'm going to play the clip, then you can tell us about this song that you wrote in memory of the great country singer Loretta Lynn. All right. Let's pull that up. This is, I guess, in the studio right here.
That's in the studio in Memphis. The name of the studio is American Recording Studio.
And that's, is that where you told me Elvis recorded?
Elvis recorded his most famous studio album from Elvis in Memphis. Songs on that album were In the Ghetto, Suspicious Minds, Kentucky Rain. It really solidified him as like the true rock. He'd gone to Hollywood and he got into movies, and, it seemed like no one was taking him serious anymore. But that album like solidified his status as like a true rock and roll icon. Right.
All right, let's play this little clip. It's a short one. Here we go. Now, I got to tell you, I've been following your journey, and I never thought you had such. I didn't expect to hear that great voice, just because I just didn't even know what to expect. I mean, your speaking voice and your singing voice is like at another level. Your singing voice. Were you always a good singer? Did you sing in school? Did you ever have like a background in singing?
Well, growing up in the South, going to church. I mean, obviously did a lot of singing, but my mom tells the story that I had auditioned for a little, not that I went out of my way to audition for it, but the other day she was like, "You remember when the Chattanooga boys choir was recruiting you?" And I'm like, "I do not remember that, Mom." But in high school, I was in an elite choral group that you had to audition for. And so, it's weird when you listen to yourself, how you perceive your own voice. I don't, someone told me who's recently, they said your voice is very evocative and soothing. I was like, that's a first. That's, you know, I'm not saying this about myself. Someone said that about my voice. So
Right.
it's very interesting having outside people listen to you, and because, you know, you don't hear yourself the same way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, let's take a step back. I still have a lot of feedback coming from your microphone. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's storming. It's been storming really bad here. We've got your weather, Dave, the Florida weather.
It's not raining here at all. People are in the winter. It doesn't rain here. It's very dry. It rains all summer, but we don't have rain in the winter here. It rains for maybe 10 minutes. Talk to me. Let's go back to the bodybuilding. Okay, when did you know you had a knack for bodybuilding?
Coming out of high school, I had offers to continue to play college football, but it was not, you know, it was not at Division I level, and I just did not really at the time. I didn't want to go out and get beat up every day for 4 years and not have the ability to continue play. So I thought that was it just wasn't something I wanted to go do as much as I love football. I go off to University of Alabama and do the whole frat thing, and, you know, just wanted to experiment being normal, and I was miserable. I felt like something in my life was lacking. I was always athletic, competing, a part of a team, and
right.
So obviously being off, just being normal, was not satisfying to me at the time. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just felt like maybe I was wasting some God-given talent. And I still had eligibility, spoke with one of my former high school coaches, and thought, like, you know, some of the schools that were recruiting me, could I have them, you know, contact them and say, hey, he's interested in playing again. And so that led me back to a journey of getting back in the gym. I realized I need to put on size. I need to be bigger, stronger, faster. So, as I was training for spring practice at UTC, I had older guys in the gym that were taking interest in seeing this younger guy. You know, I'd come in when everyone on a Monday night was doing bench. I was squatting. And so, you know, I was an anomaly, I guess, because I wasn't at that time in the clique with all the older guys that were into, like, you know, they're reading the bodybuilding magazines and they're trying to get bigger. And here's this young guy that seemed to maybe have certain genetic traits and qualities that, you know, I wasn't even aware of. So, I mean, I can remember the first are we still, everything good? You're still hearing me?
Yeah, you're great.
So, yeah, I can remember the first conversation. I remember this older guy, big guy, came up to me one evening. I was squatting. He said, hey, he goes, you know, we've been noticing you coming in here and you're training really hard. He goes, what are you training for? So I said, I'm getting ready for spring practice at UTC. And he's like, you have a really good physique. He goes, have you ever thought about bodybuilding? And that was kind of the night. I mean, I can remember being by that squat rack when he dropped that on me. And I told him, I said, no. I mean, I really didn't have a clue. I mean, I knew who Arnold Schwarzenegger was, but it was more the action hero with the muscles. You know, I'd never even opened up a bodybuilding magazine. So that's kind of what tweaked my curiosity. I remember then going to a newsstand, taking a bodybuilding magazine off the newsstands, and the fact that it was a swimsuit issue made it even easier at the time. And so, but what was interesting, I'm taking down this bodybuilding magazine, and it was a muscle mag with Debbie Halo on it, I believe. Yeah. And so I'm thinking there's going to be gorgeous, beautiful women, and I'm opening up, but the first thing I see is Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia. I'm like, and it blew my mind. I bought the magazine. Again, it's funny because the initial reason I grab it off the newsstand is because of the cover, and it's a swimsuit issue. But when I saw Dorian, it blew my mind. I took it home and read the entire magazine, you know, from front to back that night. And I thought, wait a minute, this guy's making a living. And I mean, of course, this is not, I mean, the industry's changed so much, right? But at the time I thought, I want to do something that challenges me, that uses my, even if it's athleticism and any type of gifts that I have, I'm competitive. And what if I could do this? And all these things kind of lined up at the same time. It wasn't long after that, I see a poster in the gym back in the old days when contest promoters would actually put posters up in a gym, and it was the NPC Atlanta Bodybuilding Championships. And there wasn't anyone for me to the guys in the gym they were just trying to be bigger. No one from my community had ever really been successful bodybuilding. There've been a handful of guys that had competed, but no one had any, real true success. So I didn't even know if I wanted to compete, who to go to in my community or my hometown or specifically that gym. So I just get on the phone and call the promoter and say, hey, I've never competed. I don't know what I need. This is all new to me. So he was like, you're going to need posing trunks. You're going to need skin dye. And so I ordered everything, and I used at the time, I mean, this is so crazy to think about because I'm not old, Dave, but how rapidly things have changed with technology, then jump into YouTube, and then like now with everything, Instagram. And so I'm actually laying down bodybuilding magazines in an aerobics room on the floor. I have them opened up, and I'm seeing like, I'm not sure what competition, what pro show, but I'm seeing like all these various like compulsory, shots, the top 5 of guys are lined up, and there's, pictures of all the different compulsory poses. And I'm looking down at the page, then looking up at the mirror, and I'm trying to get my body into the positions I'm seeing in the magazines. And that's how I did my first show. I used Franco Palumbo's I think it was called, it was a small book on, you could use it as a contest prep book. I mean, it was crazy. I used his diet. There was Franco Palumbo had bread in there. He had,
He's Italian. You gotta have bread,
stuff.
Right?
Yeah, but I used that because I did not know any better. And I competed in the NPC Atlanta Bodybuilding Championships in the novice. And it was such a great experience because there was 7 of us in the novice middleweight. Did not have a clue. So there's 7 of us, and typically only the top 5 at the evening shows brought back out, correct? So they brought just all 7 of us out. So I didn't even know this at the time, but all 7 of us are on stage, and they start announcing the top 5. So in 5th place, this guy, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place. Well, do the math. That means there's only 2 of us off to the side standing. Either I'm 1st place or I'm dead last. Either I'm 1st or 7th. And I'm thinking I'm 7th because I could not gauge my own physique at the time. And I hear, and winner Peter Putnam. And I'm thinking, it blew my mind. But after the show, I remember, of course, you remember Stan McCraney, Curly Top, Willie Stalling. Those were Atlanta bodybuilders.
Sure.
They came up to me backstage, and they're like, hey, man, this is your first time to ever compete. And I was like, yeah, obviously. I mean, I'm doing a novice. So they were just like, man, keep it up. You really, you look good. You're young. You got a lot of the tools. Just keep it up, man. You could go far. And so I really didn't know what to do after that. Again, I'm still by myself. There's no culture of bodybuilding in my hometown of Dalton, Georgia. So I came back with this trophy. It's put up on the countertop when people are walking in, checking in. And I mean, it was like a big deal, right? But then I see a flyer for the NPC Eastern Seaboard, and guess who was the guest poser? It was Dorian Yates. And I was like, that was the man. And he was at that time the guy that I was looking up to. And I thought, you know what, I'll just do the show just to meet Dorian, and I'll just do the junior division. Who knows what's going to happen, but at least I get to meet Dorian. And that was kind of at the time the show that really probably was the turning point for me in bodybuilding, because I'm still new to this. I don't have anyone helping me. I go to the show, I do prejudging, and after that, I mean, I still don't know how to gauge anything. But I'll never forget this. As I was walking back into the auditorium prior to the evening show, I'm passing Dorian. And of course, I didn't want to be like this starstruck, fanboy and just like, make a scene or act. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to act like I don't even see him and just walk by him. Well, as I'm walking past him, he reaches out and like just grabs my shoulder, and I'm kind of startled. He says, hey, congratulations on winning your class. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, the evening show's not even started. How does he know this? And it couldn't understand it, because I'm thinking to myself, how does Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia, how does he know I won my class? I'm thinking, did he talk to the judges? Why is Dorian Yates having conversations about me? I couldn't understand. But you know what's so funny was, years later, I'm interviewing Dorian when I was signed and I was a Weider athlete. I was going around catching some Olympia Expo interviews, and I came up to Dorian and interviewed him. But after the interview, I said, you may not remember this, but I have a quote. And I brought this, I shared the story with him. And it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense now. But he said, Peter, he goes, I just probably looked up there at some point and realized, like, oh, that guy's obviously winning the class. It was just obvious. And great. I was like, well, okay, that makes sense now. But for years, that was the kind of thing that really like kind of like motivated me to think that 6-time Mr. Olympia actually stopped and went out of his way to congratulate me and tell me I won my class before the evening show. So backstage, while everyone else was like, probably, they're nervous and wondering where they placed, I'm pumping up thinking I won.
That's great. Good story. Yeah, Dorian inspired me, my career for sure. I was like, I'm like, if this guy could be 300 pounds, then anyone, I could be 300 pounds. Little did I know that how hard it would be to do that, but I did it. And so,
Dave, I met you. Dave, you will not remember this, but I met you and got an autograph. You know what? I should have. Somewhere in the attic, I have stacks of my magazine. Like I was going through things last night. I was actually looking for a MXR phaser pedal somewhere up in the attic. And while I was up in the attic, stacks of boxes, because people, most people have their trophies, like, they're adorned. They have their own, like, like wall, and it's just a celebration of their career. And that's fine. That's cool. And for a moment in time, I had a little, I had a stand in a place like that, but not anymore. Everything's up in the attic and boxes. But
you know what I do with mine?
What's that?
You know what I do with my trophies and medals?
What's that?
I threw them in the garbage. I kept one trophy. That's it. Just one trophy to show. All right. Because I just felt like, do I really need all this like pat on the back crap? What do I need this crap for? I said, it doesn't mean anything. To
each their own. And I'm, I see.
No, I don't. I'm not. I know guys that have halls of fame to themselves, and that's great. To me, it was just junk that was taking up space. The first trophy I ever won was the most important to me, because it validates you, right? That first trophy, like, you're validated,
Sure, and I share your sentiments with that. I have all these boxes, different magazines, and even like. So like I found a stack of the Flex cover, completely mint. Look, I have stacks of these, because obviously Weider sent me a whole.
How many covers were you on, all told? Do you remember?
I'd have to sit here and do the math. I mean, I wish I'd been on more covers. I was told, and this is not to like create any drama, but after I won the nationals, I was told by a certain person in the art department that there was another cover of me that was mocked up, laid out. And I'm not going to go into why it didn't hit, I've heard another story, but I don't want to bring up why. It's one of those things. I'm kind of mad because like I wanted that second cover of Flex. I was a Weider athlete. I'm not saying it was expected, but I had just won the nationals, and I thought like it kind of would make sense, And so, and to hear someone from inside the art department say, we had it ready to go. I'm like, why did it never go? I don't understand. But I have like in that box, here's a letter from Peter McGuff, and how this is a precious letter to me. Like, we got you covered. Congrats, Peter. And so like, here's Peter, here's Peter's handwriting, and, God rest his soul. He was a great man, and he was a good friend, and I'm grateful for him, because like he saw something in me. I guess he was of that old guard, he saw something in people and thought like, this guy could be a benefit to us, and to invest in this individual and help Yeah, I mean, it's twofold. It's like when you bring someone on board, you're branding them, but they also help you build the brand. So I just really thought that it meant a lot to know that someone like Peter McGuff saw something in me and was willing to take a chance on me when there's so many other great physiques.
So hold on. So why weren't you on the cover? Did you ever find out?
Well, so I remember being at the LA Fit Expo in 2009 because I turned pro at the 2008 Nationals. And so I started asking the question because I'm working the Weider booth. It's Jay, Jay and I are both the only two athletes at the Weider booth. And of course, Jay had an entourage at the time. I mean, and deservingly so. He is Mr. Olympia. Jay's got an entourage. There's all these people. And then here I am. I just turned pro. I'm honored to be there. I was just thrilled to be, living the dream at the time.
Sure.
But I'm asking some of the staffers at Flex, I'm like, so am I going to get this? I've heard there's a cover ready to go. Am I going to get this? And I was told by a certain individual, well, we're going to wait. You've got to prove yourself on stage. Basically implying like, we're going to wait until your first pro show to see how you do. And at that point, I thought, this is not, Peter McGuff was no longer the editor-in-chief at that point. Okay. If you remember remember the timeline. Yep. And so I thought, well, that's very different because Peter wasn't worrying about how you placed at a show. If he wanted you on the cover, he put you on the cover.
Right. I think that's when Robbie Durant took over or something like that, right?
No, Alan.
Alan Donnelly.
Alan Donnelly was now at that point was the editor-in-chief.
Right. He was probably too worried about. He was worried about what other people were thinking. That's why, probably, I'm sure.
Well, I think there was also this idea, if you remember,
jealousy too.
What's that?
There was a lot of jealousy over you because you know what? You didn't win the overall at the Nationals. You won the light heavyweight class, but you were a very marketable looking guy, and I think Weider liked that. That sold magazines, obviously, and so maybe people thought, oh well, he didn't win the overall. Why are they putting him on the cover?
I'm sure it was. Yeah, Dave. I mean, you're correct. And likewise, you've been privy to conversations that a lot of people there's conversations you've had with people you will never, ever discuss with anyone just out of respect because you want to keep certain things in confidence. Right. I had conversations and it wasn't anything that I went out of my way to seek out to know. It's just kind of like, when you're at a party or you're like at dinner and just people are having conversation talking about they would get like the units per month based on the sale of magazines, and they could see a direct correlation to who was on the cover and how many units were selling. Mm-hmm. And it's a business.
Yep. 100%.
But a lot of people are like, well, that's not right. It's all politics. This is all prop. It's like, wait a minute. It's a business at the end of the day.
Right. Do you think people, if Kim Kardashian sells a magazine, they're going to put her on the cover, whether people think she's got a fat ass or not? They don't care. They want to sell freaking magazines. I mean, that's the methodology of.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, the magazines are a business. So
you start competing, obviously as a pro. You did a few pro shows. I think you placed 4th at the SAC Pro, right? And was it 212 class?
So that was the last show I did. I placed 4th. I thought to this date, that was the best I'd ever looked on stage as far as what I thought I brought on stage.
Yeah, that was 2010.
I had a first place vote. I mean, I think that says a lot right there. I mean, one of the judges actually gave me a first place vote. Of course, obviously that gets tossed out. And so, I mean, I have people saying, Peter, you're now hitting your stride. Like this could now be the beginning. If you just keep plugging away, just keep showing up, keep paying your dues, just keep doing what you're doing now. I mean, I hadn't even reached my potential. So, but that was the last show I ever did.
That's my next question. Why did you stop bodybuilding? I've never asked you this question. I don't know the answer to it. So tell us.
Well, it's kind of tied into the request that I gave you about not bringing up anything. For personal reasons, I needed to take time after a divorce. Now let's just leave it at that. And I wanted to really just examine my life and take time, however much time that was, to process things, to heal, and just really work on being a better person. So much of my life had been consumed, bodybuilding consumed my life, that it was, it was not just, as you know, it's not just a lot of guys getting into the industry. They think, this used to be the mentality before you could turn a camera on yourself and promote yourself on Instagram or YouTube, when you had to you had to actually earn, you had to go to stage, you had to by your placings on stage, actually almost earn the privilege of being even featured in a magazine. Like Steve Bleckman. Steve just didn't go hunt you down. He wasn't just going to find some great physique that people were talking about. Hey, there's this guy, and wherever. And if you saw him, your mind would be blown. It was really well, when's he going to compete? And based on how you do at that show, then we'll feature you in a magazine. You had to earn the right and the privilege to be in a magazine. There was no turning a cell phone on yourself and now just broadcasting yourself to anyone at any time. So I don't know if I got off on a rant, but I felt that I needed to take time away. I never intended on retiring. I just thought, you know what? If the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting to get a different result, I just did not want to act like nothing had happened, just continue on in the industry, and just put on this facade and this face and this smile and be this performer. And what a lot of people didn't see was the brokenness, the man who just was wrestling with his own identity. And how did I get to this place? Because I've been so self-absorbed and consumed with bodybuilding, eat, sleep, train. My mind, Dave, and a lot of people don't even know this. I was out pitching a reality show. When I won the Nationals in 2008, I had just been on MTV Made. Now, that's a lot of people will not remember that, especially the younger guys that are coming in the industry now. MTV was a huge platform. So all the reality shows, I've been on MTV Made, where I did the show with a kid named Cody Hammond, who wanted to be a bodybuilder. And so it was all about trying to capitalize this momentum and, in my mind, break a glass ceiling. I thought, well, I know I'm not going to be Mr. Olympia, and I don't know how far I want to push the envelope. Obviously, if I'm not healthy, there's no reason to do this, because without your health, nothing else really matters. And how much am I willing to sacrifice my health? Because, there's a cost to everything. And this, there's a tremendous sacrifice and price you have to pay in order to be the best, to be competitive. And the question is, how much is this worth? So what's the cost to benefit ratio? And so I thought, if I can parlay this momentum, the notoriety, the influence, the currency of celebrity at the time, because celebrity is a currency. If I can use this to kind of catapult myself into other venues, maybe it's reality television, then I don't have to worry so much about trying to be the competitor that grinds it out from show to show to show. There's really not that much money, and you're sacrificing so much for so little. Maybe you get some magazine covers, great, but at the end of the day, those are up in the attic. How can I use this to leverage more opportunities and income? So I was consumed with that. I'm out on Sunset Boulevard, meeting with Milla Jovovich. I believe that's her name. The actress that did all the Residential Evil movies. I'm with her agent in his office. We're talking reality shows, and he's like, "Man, this is a money maker. All the product placement." I was after a photo shoot with Muscle Fitness in Santa Monica in the Promenade, in a guest store, sitting next to Coolio, the rapper. God rest his soul, he just passed away.
Yeah.
And I've got Joe Barham. If you remember Joe Barham, who did Mark Dugdale's Driven, a videographer at the time. He's worked with Chris Gethin, and he's a great guy. He's there filming all this. He's got his camera with him in his lap. Coolio's looking at me, and Coolio, and I'm not going to say, "Hey, are you Coolio?" I just played it cool and just didn't even I didn't even look at him. And then I hear him say, "Hey, man, I just saw you. I know who you are." And I'm like, I'm playing it cool. I'm like, "Man, you don't know who I am." He's like, "No, man, I know who you are." And I was like, "Man, you don't know who I am." He's like, "Yeah, man." And he goes, I was flying back from Italy, stopped in Heathrow in London, and I was looking at the magazine racks, and you were holding a dumbbell and you were curling with you. And he did the pose on the flex cover.
Wow.
And when he said that, I realized, I was like, "Yeah, man, that's me." He's like, "What's up, man? My name's Coolio." And so right then and there, he sees Joel and he says, "What's going on with your boy, man?" I said, "Well, he's my friend. He's a videographer. He's capturing footage." And I told him what I was wanting to do with, and he said, "Hold on." He gets on it. Here's an old cell phone of mine. He gets on his cell phone. He's like, "Hold on. Hey," and he's talking to his agent. He goes, "I've got someone you got to meet. This is gold. This is gold. This is money. You got to meet this guy. Need a reality show." And so he gives me his phone number. We leave out of there, and I'm with Joel, right? And I'm like, "Joel, let's just see if this is really, if Coolio really gave me his phone number."
Yeah.
Hey, I'm like, "Hey, man, this is Pete. Hey, this is Coolio." I said, hey, I just wanted to verify that I had your, I just played it off like I wanted to know I had your number correct. And so it was Coolio's number. A week later, I'm talking to his agent. And so there was a lot of things going on about trying to, like, in my mind, how can I actually go to another level where I don't have to be like that guy that just grinding it out, knowing I'm only going to go so far.
Where did it all did anything materialize from all these meetings and stuff like that?
So one of my friends, this was, so at one point in Los Angeles, there's a camera crew, that was hired following us around. That just seemed like it just seemed to make sense at the time. I was saying that I was out in Venice and Los Angeles, and there was a camera crew going around capturing footage, and that then was being shopped and pitched to different networks rather, and it got shot down. Just one after another, it was getting shot down. But that was going on without my involvement while I was preparing for the Sacramento Pro, which was the last show that I did.
So what made you stop, and then where did you go from there? Because obviously, by stopping, you probably lost a chunkable size of income, I would think, because you had a weeder contract.
Yeah, when I returned, so there's a divorce. I am processing everything, and I had promoters. I was that guy that prided myself on being the utmost professional. If someone contacted me, I didn't wait around. I didn't wait a day or a week to get back to someone like so many. I was told a lot of other athletes were pretty bad about doing. I would email someone back right away. So I had promoters contacting me, still wanting to bring me out to guest pose and make appearances. And for the first time in my career, I just didn't even respond. I just couldn't. I just felt like I don't want to continue on with this. And of course, people were saying, just like what you brought up, where you're turning down income. That's your livelihood. You're just walking away from that. And I can't explain it to you at the time. It just felt like it was the right thing to do. I felt like if I just continued on, then I wasn't going to change. And I wanted to change. And, what you don't change, you choose. And so I decided for that period of time that I just needed to step away. I never announced I was retiring. That was never planned. That was not at the moment. At that point, I never thought I'm going to retire. I just thought I'll take some time off. And the longer I was away, the freer I felt. And so that's the best way I can explain it. There was a certain amount of freedom, like weight that was lifted off of me. I felt like I was no longer having to perform. And we
Right.
live
So
in a society, even now, that much more, where people can turn a camera on themselves and they're always thinking about content. I got to generate content.
Right.
This is how I build an audience. So it's just
it's a rat race. You get sucked in. It's a rat race for sure. You get sucked into. But so what did you do? Where did you go? How were you making a living for yourself during this time? You know.
Well, I was still able to use, you know, the name, the notoriety.
Right.
I feel like God doesn't waste anything. So I still was able to, you know, use that to like train people contacting me for services, consulting, putting together nutritional plans, training packages. And I still do that to a certain degree. I could do that a lot more. It's just, and as you know, it's very time consuming. You deal with a lot of needy people. And I don't say that, I don't use that as a pejorative, but when people are getting ready for a show, whether it's a local level show, in their mind, that's the most important thing in the world. And if you take their money, then you're obligated to them. Yeah, and you have to be. I mean, so I just, you know, and time is a currency, right? And we're limited life sources. Life is equated in time. So there's a trade out. So I just felt like, you know what? I need to pull away from a lot of this, because I need to really examine who I am, and maybe it takes a lot of courage to examine who you are, how you got to a certain place. Because a lot of what we're doing, I think a lot of people just get into this routine. You become a part of this ongoing machine, and you're not even thinking. It's like, I just did not want to continue with the status quo, and I wanted to evaluate my life and ask myself, are there other things that I would like to do or that I can do? Because like, if I continue this path of bodybuilding, again, the music, that's always been a part of my life. If I continue this course, what am I also, my yes to bodybuilding means no to other things.
I got you. So you wind up pouring all your passion into the music. The album is out now. People can just go to iTunes and download it? The Shadowlands?
It's available on all. Yeah, it's available on all music streaming platforms. So if you're on Apple Music, you can download it on iTunes. If you have
that's where I got it from,
Spotify account, you can stream it.
Oh, good. Okay. Now, are you planning on doing any music videos for this thing, where you're going to, like, you know, perform and you know, and have like a video? I mean, I don't know do people even do videos anymore? I don't even know.
They do. It's more what's called, and you know this, it's called micro content. So it's just YouTube shorts and things like that. So I'm going to have to make myself do that. So the album, The Shadowlands, it dropped on the 6th. It's now available on all music streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music. You can find it anywhere. And I'd love for people to follow my journey with this, share it. I'm really proud of it. I think it's a great album. I'm humbled by the feedback already. I mean, Friday, the day it was released, I had a girl send me a message through, you know, Messenger, and she's crying in a picture saying, I've just listened to a particular song, and she's crying. And it is so amazing to know that you could put something out there like that is touching and impacting people like that. And so, if you guys who are watching this enjoy it, share it with people. If you'd like to know more about me or follow me, just, you know, I'm on Instagram at peterputnam.com, Facebook, all that jazz. TikTok, I'm there. I'm trying to get used to that. Got to figure out those algorithms, Dave.
You know, every time I think I have everything under control, like another social media thing pops up, and I'm like, oh, not another one I got to do. Oh my God. But hey, you want to reach the young kids, you got to be on TikTok. So my kids are all on TikTok. So I guess you want to be able to touch everyone. Look, I listened to the album. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I listened to like most of it. And I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. You know, it sounds very professional. They did a great job putting it together. The music is good. The lyrics are great. I wish you the best of luck with it, Pete. You know, I was on one of the breaks where we kind of lost each other. I was telling people that, you know, it's very important that you not only have all your eggs in one basket. It's like having multiple streams of income. You know, this is something that's really important to Pete, and you put a ton of effort into it. And I want to just congratulate you on an awesome album and say best of luck in the future. And guys, that's going to take us to the end of another episode of RX Muscle Spotlight. I'm Dave Palumbo for Peter Putnam. We'll see you next time.